What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Just Won the Tank War post-game show. The Blazers, in overtime, lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder by a final score of 134 to 131. This was actually a pretty good game for it being a game between two teams trying to tank Eric. This was a good offensive game. Both teams reached the 130s. They had 5 extra minutes to do so, but it was a game in which teams made shots. You know, a lot of tanking games are just ugly games where teams are shooting 20% from 3 and 30% from the field, but both these teams knocked down shots all game long. This was about as entertaining of a tank game as you could possibly find, and the Blazers come out on the right side of this one, losing and therefore keeping themselves tied with the Sacramento Kings in the win column. Sacramento's currently a half game ahead of Portland, 6th place in lottery odds. Portland's 7th place. I had to add the tank to this graphic because this was a game in which you had just both sides had players that I would guarantee you about 90% of NBA fans don't know. And I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on this game? Pretty happy that they lost, right?
Thank you, Isaiah Roby. You are now my favorite player for the next day or two.
Clutch.
That was he came up huge in overtime, and obviously at the end of the fourth quarter had a great game. But man, can you imagine saying that the Thunder would have 22 wins and they'd be 3-0 against us?
Are they 3-0 against us? That's wild.
Yeah, I think we still play them once more, right?
Yeah, probably in the stretch. Yeah, we're in the middle of that 9-game stretch where we play only against 4 teams, which is the Pelicans, Spurs, Thunder, and Rockets. I know we played 2 games against each of those teams. The Spurs we play 3 times. So yeah,
because we lost we lost the 2 earlier this season. When they had that epic comeback against us in one of the games, and then I don't remember what happened in the other game, but we definitely lost it. So yeah, good job, Blazers. I mean, there were some really insane stat lines from this game. Like, a lot of players played well on both sides, and it was kind of fun to watch. But I mean, I have to admit, I don't think I've ever cheered as hard against the Blazers as I did at the end of this game. Like, I don't like the feeling, but man, you gotta do what you gotta do, right?
Yeah, and I mean, this is just an impressive tank job, man. I mean, you're talking about losses against Indiana, San Antonio, Houston twice, and OKC in the past 6 games. Of course, they barely beat Detroit in Detroit. That sucks. But it's an impressive tank job, and it could get them as high as 6th in the lottery. We'll look at the lottery odds in a little bit and see how that's updated. But at this point, San Antonio won today. Portland lost. You don't even have to worry about San Antonio anymore if you're Blazer fans. They have 4 more wins than the Portland Trail Blazers right now. They are 4 games better than the Portland Trail Blazers right now. It seemed like we were stuck with them for quite a while there, and now we have 4 games of separation from the Spurs. So it's pretty much just us in Sacramento at this point. Indiana's going to be hard to catch. Their 5th place in lottery odds. So it's a situation where you're rooting for the Kings to win some basketball games. You're rooting for the Blazers to lose some basketball games. I know there's still a few holdouts who are still rooting for this team to win basketball games. But at this point, it's obvious that...
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, it's obvious that this team needs to lose. This team needs as good of a draft pick as possible, and they are on that path to giving themselves the best chance to move up into the top 4 in the draft. And a lot of people asked for this for a long time, Eric. They were tired of just making the playoffs, but not being good enough to contend, and being recently a first-round playoff exit. And a lot of them wanted, either a risk to go all in if it was available, go all in on contending, trade a bunch of picks, young prospects for an established star, or they wanted some sort of situation like this. Now, a tank job was never going to happen without the injuries that the Blazers have suffered this year, without Dame going through what he went through, CJ missed time. So it was a situation where something like this wasn't realistic, barring those sort of circumstances, but those circumstances have played out this year, and I'm happy that the team has embraced just a route that could give them a chance to really improve the team heading into next year, and that's getting as high of a pick as possible. So I'm very, very happy with this result. We'll continue to root hard for them to lose. I was hyped when Roby hit that 3. It's just for the betterment of the team long term. I understand that the players are going to win, but every loss is a good thing for the future of the Portland Trailblazers.
Yeah, when Keon threw that pass under his own basket for a wide open dunk for the Thunder, for a second I was like, what? Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's almost hard to remember, like, oh, yeah, you want them to lose. But Keon just threw a dime for a dunk for OKC, and it's like, good pass, Keon. Good job, man. And then on the other hand, Eric, we got to talk about this. Ben McLemore is really trying to help the Blazers win games all of a sudden. Right, he went on this.
They all are. He's just.
I mean, absolutely, but he was trying to help us win games, but he was helping us lose games for a while. He had like a month and a half where he couldn't hit a 3, and he's the type of guy where like if he can't hit a 3, he's not going to help you out much. But that slump is seemingly over. McLemore today, 28 points, 10 for 22 from the field, 8 for 18 from the 3-point line.
Man, he was chucking up a lot of threes.
It's just. I'm just going to come out and say this. We should have cut him after the deadline. It doesn't really make sense to have Ben McLemore on a team trying to lose games, trying to tank. I don't really see him being a part of our future. I see him probably playing somewhere else next year, which is, good for him, especially because he's ending the season on a hot shooting streak. It's just a situation where this dude has probably, without him, we probably lose against Detroit. He almost wins us the game tonight. There was other good performances. Eubanks in 41 minutes had 27 points on 12 for 14 shooting, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. So Eubanks was great. Brandon Williams was great, but those are guys that I expect to be with the team next year. Keon Johnson had some solid moments, had 4 steals, 17 points. Chris Dunn, 5 for 7. Maybe he's on the team next year. I don't really know. But Ben McLemore is just, the dude is shooting the lights out of the basketball at the wrong time. And it's a situation where you're going against a Thunder team. I don't know if they have one player that's as good as Ben McLemore right now. That's how sad their team is. Roby looked phenomenal tonight. Roby and Poku are kind of the two guys that I think are, maybe higher caliber players than Ben McLemore. But it's a situation where this easy stretch, man, McLemore, when he gets hot from 3, he gets scorching hot from 3, and he can single-handedly keep you in games or win you games against these sort of teams.
We were up like 6 or 8 with a little over a minute left, so we got pretty lucky because McLemore hit a couple threes there at the end. But yeah, so we survived it, I guess. But yeah, it's like why is Blevins not in? Like Billups is obviously coaching to win these games, which is once again not a bad thing, but.
It's just a situation where they should have took the decision out of Chauncey's hands and maybe cut McLemore after the deadline. Because I think a team trying to win would have signed him. I think he could be playing for a winning team right now. Instead, he's stuck here while we're tanking. And I just think the front office should have taken that decision out of Chauncey's hands.
Yeah, the only thing I think of is we haven't been healthy, and he's been healthy, so I guess maybe they just wanted to get rid of.
Sign a G League guy.
Yeah.
Go sign. Does Kelvin Blevins have a cousin?
Well, we signed Reggie him. Perry back.
Yeah. Go sign, dude. Go sign the random.
McGriff and Benedict Cumberbatch back on the team.
Yeah, Cumberland. Yeah, just go sign a G League guy. Give a G League guy a chance and give McLemore a chance to play for a team that is actually trying to win games where his shooting might help that sort of team. That made the most sense to me. And for some reason that didn't happen. You got McLemore stuck on this team almost single-handedly winning. Not single-handedly, but he's having a huge impact on games when he's shooting like he did tonight. And it's a situation where we need to lose as many games as possible. So I think they should have cut him a while ago. Somebody said I was hating on him, and it's like, no, he's playing too well, and we need to lose.
Yeah.
If he was playing terribly, I'd say good job, Ben. Right? But he's playing too well.
With only one guy over 6'5" or 6'6" on the roster, the solution is maybe to not play Drew as much, but unfortunately, like I said, the coaching staff isn't going to like not try to win games.
Yeah.
So
and I'm not saying they should. You just got to make it as hard as possible for them to win games if you're the front office. And this front office definitely wants to tank. You're telling me Cronin doesn't want the first overall pick or second overall? Maybe the first would be a little too much pressure for him, but you're not telling me he would want the second overall pick compared to the 7th? He absolutely would. That would make his job a lot easier this summer. And I guarantee you, Cronin isn't sitting here on pins and needles like, please win this game, please win this game. Oh, dang it, Roby hit a 3. Okay? I can pretty much guarantee you that he's not thinking like that. So, should have taken that decision out of Chauncey's hands. It could have been a situation where they kept him because he was shooting so poorly, but now he's been shooting the ball really, really well.
Trevin says, are you sure? Did you see that last possession? I'm assuming he's meaning where Drew threw it into CJ on the baseline and with 2 seconds left wasn't going to be able to do anything with it. Yeah, that was close.
I wanted them to throw it down and score a layup at the buzzer so that, the Thunder were 1.5 point spreads, and I took the Blazers and picks, and they almost lost by 1. That would have been the best of both worlds. So that's what I was hoping for on that final play. Unfortunately, not. But let's take a look at Tankathon. Let's just jump straight into things here. Let me pull it up for you guys. All right. This is updated. Portland is still currently tied in the win column with Sacramento. Sacramento just has an extra loss. So Portland controls their own destiny. If they lose out, then they end up tying the Sacramento Kings. At that point, their odds at the top 4 and the number 1 overall pick would get evened out. And then if neither of them jumped to the top 4, there would be a coin flip for who ends up with the highest pick between like 6 and 7 or 7 or 8. 8 and 9, whatever, wherever they end up. So that is the situation you're looking at. If Sacramento can win a game, Portland moves into 6th place, where they would have a 37% chance of the top 4 and a 9% chance of the number 1 overall pick. I don't think it's feasible that they move up to 5. I don't think Indiana gets to 27 wins. Indiana currently has 6 games remaining, and those games are against Denver, Boston, Detroit, that's a winnable game, Philadelphia, and Brooklyn. So maybe Detroit and one of those teams, if one of those teams is resting guys or just has an off night, but it's going to be hard for Indiana to win 2 of these final 6 games. All right, yeah. So honestly, if Portland doesn't lose out, I don't think there's any chance they catch Indiana. If Portland loses the rest of their games, then there is a small chance that they're able to catch Indiana for that 5th lottery spot. This is the rest of Portland's games. New Orleans, San Antonio twice in a row. OKC, New Orleans again, Dallas, and Utah. So I could see Portland losing all these games. I mean, look at all these green L's, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Hella green L's. So it's possible, but I think at this point, Indiana, I don't think Portland's going to catch Indiana. But 6th is very gettable, and your odds go up 5% for a top 4 pick and 1.5% chance of the number 1 overall pick. I know that doesn't seem like much, but I'll take it. And here's the situation: if Portland doesn't jump up into the top 4, their pick ends up being 1 spot higher. So that could be the difference of being able to get an AJ Griffin compared to having, compared to another prospect. So it could definitely be useful. That pick would be a little bit more valuable in trades. So even if they don't jump into the top 4, moving up still matters, just because it gets them a higher pick.
Yeah, and shout out to JM 1231, $2 donation. Says we need Sac to lose one of their 2 games against Houston, and then another $2 donation to correct it to say I meant win. LOL. Yes.
Thank you for the $4 in donos. I'm glad you had that typo on the first one. Appreciate you.
So the good news is, their next 2 games are against Houston. The bad news is I think Fox and Sabonis are already ruled out of both of them.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and then the other bad news is Houston has actually been playing better lately. I know, obviously, we were tanking, but they were missing Eric Gordon and Christian Wood today, correct, Eric?
Eric Gordon, Christian Wood, and Dennis Schroeder all sat out, yeah.
Yep, and they only lost to the Spurs by 3. So Houston is a team that is playing solid basketball. I think Houston will be favored in both these games. And then after that, you have Golden State, which, I mean, maybe Golden State's resting players. I don't know. They've had some injury issues. So maybe that's a game that the Kings can steal. But then New Orleans, who's playing for play-in positioning. The Clippers are locked into 8th, so maybe the Clippers rest some guys. And then Phoenix, who's locked into the number 1 spot, so maybe Phoenix rests some guys. So actually, this might look hard. At first, I saw these Final Four games. It was like, oh, they're not winning any of them. But depending on circumstances and who plays, Sacramento might be able to win 1 or 2 of these Final Four games. So obviously just take care of Houston. Houston's the easiest team left on the schedule for Sacramento, and then we're sitting pretty at 6.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the Pelicans pick goes, the Pelicans are half a game better than Washington for 11th. New York won today, which is good news for the Blazers, probably, because New York has a chance of passing up New Orleans, and that New Orleans pick could fall to 12. Obviously, that means smaller chance at them moving into the top 4 if they miss the playoffs, so that'd be good. So it's kind of pick your poison. Obviously, it would be awesome if New Orleans could avoid the play-in, but at this point, Eric, I think there's about an 80% chance that New Orleans is in the play-in. New Orleans has 2 games left against Portland. I don't see them losing against Portland. They got a game left against Sacramento.
And I don't think it matters enough for us to want to win either one of those or both of those. Yeah. I'd rather get the higher spot for our pick than worry about what they're going to do, because even if we beat them twice, they could still easily make the play-in and make the playoffs or whatever, so that's not going to factor in.
Yep, the good news is they'd have to win both playing games to make the playoffs. The other good news is, well, there's 2 other bits of good news with that. The Lakers should have Anthony Davis back, and the Clippers should have Paul George back, right? So as a Blazer fan, I'm hoping that the Lakers are in the play-in against the Pelicans instead of the Spurs. I think the Lakers would have a better chance at beating them. Obviously, would be nice for the Lakers to pass them up, because that'd make the New Orleans pick to Portland higher, and then the Lakers would have that 9-10 play-in game at home. And you're talking about LeBron AD at home against a New Orleans team that they should have Ingram back, but without Zion. You're going into that game as a Blazer fan probably feeling comfortable with the Lakers being able to take care of business there. I know they've struggled all season, but AD's missed a lot of time. And it's a one and done playoff setting for LeBron. Okay, so I bet on LeBron in that sort of situation. Obviously, if New Orleans is at home, then it makes things a little bit iffier. It could have been easy, Eric, because the Lakers had a 23-point lead against the Pelicans yesterday and blew it and lost. If the Lakers held on to that game, the Pelicans would currently be tied at 8th with San Antonio for the 10th play-in spot. So it really, really sucked that the Lakers choked.
Yes.
It's just such a weird season. I can't believe I'm saying that, but the Lakers are such frauds, man. Is there anything else to note with the tank race before we simulate this?
Not really. Just hope for better odds, and if we somehow get the Pelicans pick, it's still going to come down to whether they win the play-in or not.
Yep. I'm just trying to sum up everything for you guys, give you guys as clear of a picture as possible. But let's simulate the lottery. We've had insane luck on the past few streams. I feel like it's bound to run out at some point, but maybe not, let's see how things go for us. All right. You have Charlotte at 14. That's already looking bad, Eric. Washington at 13 moves down 2 spots.
2 spots? Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, that's good news for keeping the Pelicans pick. Bad news for our pick moving up, obviously, because you got 2 of the top 4 teams already decided. At 12, we keep the Pelicans pick. It moves down to 12. At 11, it's the Lakers to Memphis. At 10, it's San Antonio. At 9, it's Portland. So 9 and 12.
Well, that's...
At 8, Sacramento. 7, Indiana. 6, OKC. 5, Houston. At 4, you have Detroit. So whichever 2 teams moved up are top 3. At 3, you have Orlando. They're both top 2. I don't know who they are. I think one's Atlanta. At 2, you got Atlanta. And at 1, you got the Knicks.
Interesting.
What a wild tankathon sim. At 9, I think you take... Who do you take at 9?
Um, I mean, I think you take Matherin if he's there.
Yeah, that's the problem though. Is Matherin is probably top 8. Matherin probably goes 8. I feel like. Let me just look at
Well,
this mock draft.
I guess it just depends on if someone takes Duran or Matherin.
Or Johnny Davis could be the one guy that could go higher. I just feel like we're gonna be sitting there at 9. It's like, oh, Johnny Davis is the top guy on the board.
Well, you mentioned the 10 guys earlier, right? So yeah, it's probably between Johnny Davis, Matherin, and Duran. One of those three.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, two of the. If we were at 9, two of those 3 would be on the board. Mm-hmm. I just would prefer Matherin over those guys, like just because Johnny Davis doesn't have the size that Matherin has. I would love Shaden Sharp, so that would be.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see measurements first, but yeah.
Honestly, if you have 9 and 12. We haven't really talked about trade-up scenarios because most of the time it's like, oh, how do we trade into the top 3? But if you fall to 9 and 12, maybe that's a situation where you try and trade up for like 6 and another asset.
Yeah.
I don't know what that other asset could be, but
I'd still consider trading down. If you still, I mean, sucks. I guess the Spurs pick is back up to being better because I think the Celtics fell 3 spots tonight.
Yeah.
So what's their picks right now?
They currently have the 24th pick via Boston.
And what's their other one?
20
and 24. That's probably a little too late. I was just thinking, like, if you could somehow come out with, like, Sohan, Koloko, and Agbaji or something, and you get like your front court of the future basically, and then you still have Nurk and Nas and all those guys to play right now. Man, I think that would be pretty cool. But
yeah, I would not be happy with that, to be honest. I just think Portland needs one top 8 pick.
And well, I mean, we're talking about a scenario where we didn't get one.
Yeah, no, I know. I just say like I'd do whatever to trade up into the top 8 because I want Matherin, Sharp, or Griffin if we don't get a top 3 pick. I want one of those 3 guys. You've sold me on Matherin, Eric. I want one of those 3 guys. I just think you need a guy out of this draft with like star upside, and once you or like legit, I don't know. I wouldn't feel confident with the upside from that draft. I'm more happy trading down from like 10, 11, 12 for 2 later firsts. If our first round pick, we get one of the top 8.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like taking multiple chances versus just putting all our eggs into one basket, especially depending on how high we get up. I mean, obviously, if we get up to like 5 or 6, that's the one thing, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather just roll the dice with a guy like Sharp instead. That's my personal preference. Hopefully that's not a situation. Because here's the thing, like that's why it's important to move up from 7 to 6. Because then if you fall 2 spots, you're sitting there at 8. You probably just take Matherin, and you're probably happy with that. Whereas since we're 7th still and we fall 2 spots, we move down to 9th, and then it becomes a situation where if Johnny Davis doesn't get drafted before then, instead it's Matherin, then you're sitting there like, do we take Johnny Davis? He's a guard. Do we take Duran? Do we take Eason? And I would much rather have Matherin or a Shaden Sharp over those guys. I think there's I think Johnny Davis could be maybe put into that tier. He just doesn't make positional sense for the Blazers heading into next season, and you'd have some issues there. So I'd much rather prefer one of Griffin, Sharp, Matherin over anybody else.
And for anyone asking about Sharp, I see several questions about it. On Blazers Uprise Live earlier today on our second channel, we talked about Sharp at length. So I suggest you go check that out so we don't have to repeat it for those who saw it already. But
it's the link in the description below. That's our second channel we streamed earlier today. Yep.
See, let's say we can't move up. I don't really think there's a huge fall off between Matherin and Agbaji. So that's why I'd like to get him, and then we get like two possible like a power forward and a center that could eventually take over as our starters.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Agbaji's 22, Matherin's 20, basically. I
Yeah.
don't know if that should factor into things. I don't know. I like Agbaji, and I think Agbaji has a high floor, and I think he could end up being a really solid starter. It's just like I could, I have more confidence in Matherin becoming a star.
Mm. I
And
don't.
go ahead.
Real quick, I don't think it's going to be possible to trade in the top three. I think we either get it or we don't.
Yeah,
It's going to be very hard to get up there.
yeah. OKC moved down to sixth in that simulation, so like 9 and 12 for six.
30.
30 and 34 or something like that, and then you try and package 30 and 34 and move into the 20s, and maybe Koloko's still there, or you take a chance on like if Jovic is still there, something like that I would do. So yeah, it's just interesting. It's interesting to discuss scenarios. Look at this scenario. We don't get the Pelicans pick, but we get the fourth pick.
Yeah,
Would you do 4 for 6 and 15 in this scenario?
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I figured I knew the answer. I was just gonna put it out there. I don't know if OKC would, but
No, I don't think anyone's trading down from 3 to 6 in this draft, Alex. I would be shocked if anyone in the top 3 traded back that far.
yeah,
Maybe if there's a team that liked Ivy, they trade back to this position here. So, like in this scenario, we might have had a chance to move up, but since we didn't get our Pelicans pick, kind of.
you just trade them back the Milwaukee first that they would then owe us,
Yeah.
as well as number 4.
Well, maybe, I mean, because honestly, there was the Aldridge Roy year.
Mm-hmm.
We had the best lottery odds. I don't know why I said lottery odds.
Otter Lords.
We had the best lottery odds, and we fell to 4th, and then we traded with Chicago. I think it was Tyrese Thomas and a bunch of like not good players, and somehow Chicago accepted that, and we moved from 4 to 2, and because they wanted to take Thomas at 2. So maybe it's a case like in this scenario where New Orleans really likes Ivy, and we really like Jabari or Paulo or something, and they take them, and we swap and maybe give them some of their seconds back, or like you said, the Milwaukee first back or something. So yeah, that might be possible. That's the only kind of scenario I think we could move up in. But I think in most cases, there's not going to be many teams in the top 3 that would even consider it.
Yep. And then also, if you can't do that, I'd trade down from 4 to 6 and 15. OKC is a team I could see, like, people thinking, oh, they wouldn't want Jaden Ivey. They got so many guards. But I could see them wanting Ivy and just thinking, okay, SGA, Ivy, and Trey Mann is our 3-guard rotation of the future. And then they probably move off Lou Dort in that situation, or move Lou Dort to the 3. I don't know what they do with Lou Dort, but I could see them wanting like an Ivy SGA backcourt. That would be intriguing. And then there I would take like Sharp and Agbaji if Agbaji was there at 15, and those are your small forwards next year, and then figure it out from there. Figure out how to get a 4. If you really want Jeremy Grant, maybe they trade Nas for him. I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but I don't want Jeremy Grant, but
yeah, maybe. Rahi asked if the Pacers could possibly beat Detroit and then steal one of their 2 versus Philly if they're resting guys. I mean, I'm not counting on Philly to help us, or not Philly, Pacers to give us any sort of help right now. So, as you can tell by their injury report today, they're doing the same thing that us and the Thunder are doing now. So
I wouldn't count on the Pacers beating Detroit.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible they could still win a couple games. just like we almost won this game tonight. But yeah, just be. I mean, I'm gonna just assume it's not going to happen. If it does, it's kind of a extra bonus. But as of right now, I don't think it's gonna happen.
How do you feel about this scenario, Eric?
I would probably
cry.
Have to end it all.
And the channel and this, yeah. 2-10. Honestly, like Banchero's moved up into the tier with Chet and Jabari for me, so I don't know. Like, I kind of don't care to have 2 or 3 at this point, but 2, you get Jabari, and then you got 10 as well. You can take Duran, or you could see. I'd be more comfortable than trading down from 10 for like 15 and 30 and 34 or something like that, and then maybe you trade 34 for a couple future seconds, and it's basically 10 for 15, 30, and 2 future seconds.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's another thing I don't understand. Why did we not have some sort of like creative wording where if like our pick was like 6 or 7 and the Pelicans pick moved up into like 3 or 4 or something, we had a pick swap option or something just to give us a little extra protection there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would have been phenomenal. I don't trust Cronin's negotiating skills to be able to negotiate from a place of power when he has the asset that the other team wants. You know what I mean? Everybody wanted to make it out like Cronin didn't have negotiating power, but he had the commodity. When it doesn't matter what sort of situation you're in, if you have a commodity, right, that another team wants, you have at least some sort of leverage. You have at least some sort of negotiating power. And sometimes you might have to lie in your negotiations and say, well, we've gotten this trade from another team, and we've gotten this sort of deal from another team, so you're going to have to beat that at least by, giving us better protections on the Pelicans pick.
Mm.
Where, if you don't trade us the Pelicans pick, we get the Lakers pick that they could owe you, okay? And then if we don't get that, then we get, this future first, a better future first than Milwaukee one, and then also future seconds or something like that. I just feel like he could have negotiated the same sort of trade, but made the downside a little bit lessened compared to just getting a Milwaukee 2025 first, which is probably going to be in the late 20s.
The Pelicans desperately wanted CJ. It's like the Knicks have no sense. I don't know.
Yep, and Marcus, supply did not exceed demand. There wasn't a ton of good players traded. And Cronin even admitted that he probably gave up a little bit less to get CJ to the Pelicans because CJ wanted to get there. But here's the thing. It's like, who wants to go to New Orleans? Oh, you have a player that makes perfect sense for your team that actually wants to go there as well? You have some leverage there.
If you're the Pelicans, how rare is that when you find out that CJ actually wants to come play for you, is excited about it, wants to be like the man in New Orleans and all this stuff, and you still are able, and it's David Griffin too, like a horrible GM, and he still fleaces Cronin, like possibly.
We couldn't even get Trey Murphy.
We could still get lucky, I guess, and I mean it's still more, like just as likely as not that we get the pick and everything's fine, and then everyone will be like, "Oh, see, you guys should have waited to find out what happened first." But just the fact that there's even such a chance that we might not get a good pick this year is, for everything we traded out, is just beyond. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, and I mean, it wasn't a clear-cut and dry situation, but a good GM figures out a way to negotiate from a place of strength there. Mm-hmm. And Cronin made it sound like he negotiated from a place of weakness. So that is what has me worried with Joe Cronin. It's like people try and undersell CJ McCollum's trade value, but the Pelicans basically have a chance. Like, CJ's averaging 26 points per game and 6.5 assists per game for them, shooting 50% from the field and 38% from 3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? That's a legitimate star.
Yep.
Okay? And they have a chance that trade for them could be them giving up a role player and a late first-round pick 3 years from now for a guy who's averaging 26 points per game and 6.5 assists per game for them.
And they could still get 2 top 4 picks.
Yep, and they got Larry Nance out of the deal.
Larry Nance is back now, yeah.
So that trade is okay if the Pelicans pick conveys. If not, it's an absolute freaking disaster. And Joe Cronin, if that pick doesn't convey, he'll get criticized, but he knew the risks and he didn't mitigate the risks by negotiating the protections better on that pick. So that's basically where we're at right now, and we have to sit here and hope that it all works out. I'm very nervous about the Pelicans pick. I think there's about a 55% chance that we get it, a 45% chance that we don't, if I had to put odds on it. Those are the odds I gave earlier today. It's just a really bad situation if we don't get that pick. It's a really, 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 really bad situation that we don't get that pick. And it's like, I would be nervous going into the lottery day, Eric, with just the Blazers pick. Like, oh, please move up, please move up. But I am going to be sweating. I'm gonna be so freaking scared on May 17th that we could lose that Pelicans pick if we still have it, okay? Because they could still play their way into the playoffs. So I wish the play-in wasn't a thing right now. But yeah, it's a situation where I'm not feeling super comfortable right now. But I mean, we could end up with 2-9. You know what I mean? We could end up with 1-10. Like, we could end up in a really good position, or we could end up with like 8-0 or 9-0.
Mm-hmm.
Scary proposition.
Well, and as Harris points out, for those who don't think CJ had much value, Derek White got traded not only for a first-round pick, but they also got like a lightly protected pick swap in like 2028 or something like that too.
And they got Josh Richardson, who's a okay role player.
Yeah.
Not as good as Josh Hart, but you're
right.
telling me Derek White's value was that close to CJ's?
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust Joe Cronin. I don't trust Joe Cronin as a negotiator. I'm just going to say that right now. I don't trust him as a negotiator. He might be a guy that, is good through the draft and good at identifying the players this team needs. Okay? So, like, different GMs have different strengths and weaknesses. It's hard to work around, especially in a small market. If you can't negotiate trades to the best of your potential, it's hard to work around that because small markets have to manufacture as much asset value as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we could end up with one asset this summer to trade or draft with. And that's not... Sure, we have the trade player exception, but, I mean, we're going to have to trade assets to get a player that makes sense with that anyway, so...
So Andrew says Derek White had a better contract.
CJ's not a bad contract, though, man. You're talking about a dude that's giving you 26 and 6.5 on efficiency and is a leader and wants to be there. That dude is absolutely worth a max contract compared to a role player on $15 million. No. See, that's the thing is if you're a bad negotiator, you might struggle dealing with, he's probably not, CJ McCollum probably isn't worth $30 million a year. But if you're a good negotiator, you'd point to CJ McCollum and how he played without Dame and the numbers he put up without Dame and the impact he had without Dame. Because guess what? That's the same player CJ McCollum has been for New Orleans. He's been just like he was when the Blazers were missing Dame. And you should have been able to negotiate that aspect of CJ McCollum, his numbers without Dame, from a position of strength. But if you're not a good negotiator, you could have gotten leveraged by, you look at his numbers this year, most of them playing with Dame, he's probably not worth a max contract, so we're not going to give you better value in a trade.
Well, and also, okay, let's say the New Orleans trade we accepted was the best value for CJ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you can't also claim that you had to make the other trade because you were getting leveraged by teams that knew we had to get under the tax. Do the CJ trade first, get way under the tax, and then get more for those other players, right? But you can't have it both ways. You can't tell us that you had no leverage because you were in the tax and teams knew we were desperate to get under, and then later say, we traded CJ for a little less than we wanted to because we wanted to get him to a thing. So like he flat out told us without admitting it that he got out negotiated in both deals, and they kind of had to do it, I guess. But it's just do one or the other, I guess. But the fact that both of them were put together was really the problem.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Cronin had all the leverage in the world, but people act like he had no leverage at all, and that's just simply not true. That's simply not true. The only way he would have potentially had no leverage is if he put himself in a position with no leverage by not maximizing the leverage he could have had. And that's the thing is people say, oh, well, everybody knew Cronin was desperate. Well, if GMs knew Cronin was desperate, then he already failed as a GM, in my opinion. Because you never, you can put out little rumors here and there. You can kind of control the narrative about your organization as a GM. And even if teams think, oh, well, they should be desperate, look at the position they're in, you're still able to control the narrative. Just look at what Daryl Morey did with Ben Simmons, right? He supposedly had no leverage, and I was saying he has no leverage all season long, and look, he got James Harden for him, okay? Because he controlled the narrative, right? Even when everybody was saying he's crazy, he still controlled the narrative enough to be able to I mean, part of it was Harden wanted to go there, so that's the thing in a small market. Probably not a similar situation, but it's a situation where you can't let other GMs think you're desperate, and you can't negotiate from a place of desperation. If so, you're already beat.
And here's the deal. For everyone saying, like, oh, there's limited teams or whatever, the frickin' Washington Wizards traded their 2 worst contracts and got Porzingis. Now, Porzingis might not have been a good deal for us, but they didn't have to give up any picks or anything to get rid of those contracts, right?
Yeah,
and
like Spencer Dinwiddie apparently had enough value to get them Porzingis and off Bertans' contract.
So Spencer Dinwiddie had that much value, but like we couldn't get like another like young player or better, slightly better prick protections, which is all we're asking for the CJ's trade. Like that doesn't make any sense. And like I said at the very beginning of this conversation, New Orleans was desperate. They were the desperate team, but we made it seem like we were the desperate team. They wanted CJ so badly, and it was apparent for weeks that they wanted CJ. And so like, and CJ, like you said, CJ wanted to be there. How many people are screaming, you know what? I'm a good player. I want to go play in New Orleans with Brandon Ingram and stuff. Like, there's not many people that would say that. So like, even if New Orleans was the only team, if you just hold out, and we traded him 3 days before the trade deadline, right? It was Monday. So 3 days before the trade deadline, we make that move too. So just in that position, you hold out, like you don't be like, oh, okay, I guess we have to accept their offer because, oh, David Griffin said that was their final offer, so I have to either take it or we're done dealing, right? Yeah. No, they would have gotten, like the next day, they would have been like, okay, we'll give you another first or whatever, like when Karis LeVert gets traded to Cleveland or whatever, you know, like their options started dwindling. And then when you start thinking about, oh, should we bring Eric Gordon back or should we just give up a little more for CJ? They would have chosen CJ. They wouldn't have chosen Eric Gordon over that at with his, he's got a bad contract too. It's not as bad as CJ's obviously, but he's way older than CJ and not as good of a player. So, and they've already had him in New Orleans, and he wasn't ever healthy there. So, like they just should have waited or something. Like it's just stupid.
On CJ, absolutely. I understand the possibility that ownership forced Cronin, and honestly, I lean towards believing that's the case. That ownership forced Cronin to do that first trade, that Norman Powell and Rocco trade for Keon Johnson. Then I believe Cronin tried to do damage control and spin it like they targeted Keon Johnson and whatnot. But I that's absolutely a possibility that ownership forced Cronin to make that first initial trade to get under the tax immediately. So I do have that in mind, and I don't really hold that trade against Cronin because of that possibility. That second trade, they didn't need to rush. They were already under the tax, so I don't think ownership really had a hand in that. So that's the trade where I evaluate Cronin on, and it couldn't end up being a situation where he lucks out, but it has me nervous. And here's the thing. Cronin, it's his first couple of trades, so there's a chance that, okay, he's going to improve once he gets more experience calling the shots and being the main negotiator in deals like that. So, I still have an open mind for him long term. It's just not necessarily the best start considering we should have gotten better protections on that pick. We should have been at least able to get a player like Trey Murphy considering the caliber of player CJ is. And everybody, it's like, we knew what CJ was going to do once he got to New Orleans. We've seen it without Dame. That dude as the lead guard is a star, absolute star. And that's what New Orleans needed.
So I just wanted to address something Marcus said. He said, I agree the timing was bad, and once again, I suspect that the rush was from ownership over concerns about getting out of the
Yeah, well,
tax.
that's what I just addressed with the first trade.
But yeah, like you just said, we were out of the tax by this time the CJ trade happened. So even if that was your argument for the first trade, the CJ trade does not factor into that because we were under the tax when that trade was made. So that doesn't make sense about the timing either.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is like I'm that second trade is what I hold Cronin accountable for, whether it goes good or bad. You know what I mean? And it's a situation where it's like whether it goes good or bad shouldn't really change my opinion too much. Like he could luck out. He still should have gotten better protections or still should have been able to get a young player out of that deal, in my opinion. But that first trade, I give him a bit of a pass considering the possibility that ownership may have forced him to do that trade. But the getting under the tax, I mean, we were already way under the tax for the CJ trade.
What's funny though is all the people who like were total anti CJ, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're all now like, oh well, we knew CJ was capable of this. It's just he couldn't do it in Portland, right? With Dame on like that just wasn't working out, right? But like if everyone knew that CJ would be capable of this once he was on his own team and had that thing, that's again more leverage for you in a trade because if Cronin was like, oh yeah, like I don't know what to do because they're saying that CJ isn't really having a good year this year and so he might not be worth his contract or whatever. But like all the other teams in the NBA know that if they had CJ on a team where he was more of the focal point and didn't have the same issues that Portland had with duplicity or whatever, like he'd be a much better player. Like we've talked about this for years. If he was playing in the East, he'd probably have an all-star game on his resume by now if he had his own team and stuff because he'd be putting up similar type numbers.
Yeah.
So that's the way you have to negotiate, not just thinking you're already screwed from the beginning or whatever.
Yeah.
He did.
And it's a very nuanced conversation. You know, it's a very it's not something that's, you know, we're discussing nuances of GMing here. We're getting deep here in regards to deal making, but you know we like to dive deep on things here. Shout out to Jared Store, $10 dono. What's up, Jared? He says being desperate turns you into Billy King. You never want to be Billy King.
No.
Never.
Don't go full Billy King.
Exactly. And then shout out Clearly a Bot member for 6 months. His member message for the month says CJ haters love Stephen A. Smith. Don't really understand that one, but appreciate your member message. Clearly a Bot. I hope you're having a good night, man. Anyway. Do you want to do a Twitter space just for the rest of the stream? Let's do it. We haven't done a Twitter space in like a month. So let's do a Twitter space. Let me see. Hopefully I remember how to do this. Hopefully I don't have to update anything. If I do, then maybe we have to wait till next space because I didn't even think about that until now. But yeah, I'm just going to load this thing up and see. Load up the Android emulator.
Mine loaded up. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Yeah, mine did too. So I'll create the space. Zach, if you are in here and want to join on the Blazers Uprise account, go ahead. Otherwise, we're just going to do me and Eric. Yeah, let me make this space. You guys are going to hear typing. Don't worry about it. Just try and enjoy it. All right. Eric, once you're co-host in there, you should, ask your co-host first. What's up, Jackson? Member for 15 months. His member message says, I miss Trendon already. We win this game if we have Trendon. So
yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, and at least he's not seriously hurt. They didn't even rule him out for the season. So anyway, my space, I'll post the link to the space in the chat, our Twitter space. You go to my Twitter profile, link is in the description box below, click on my icon, and you can join our Twitter space and request to talk. You have to be on mobile to request to talk, or you have to have a mobile phone emulator on your computer. That's what we're using. All right, Eric, I will send you the co-host invite. And, just join our space and call in. This is basically a call-in feature for you guys to be able to call into the postgame show. So, all right, Eric, you're in here. Cool. I'm going to mute on Skype. And I will tweet out the link to this as well. What is Twitter? It says Andrew. LOL. That's funny. All right. It's been a minute.
Oh, clearly a bot meant like Stephen A. Smith super fans that follow media narratives.
Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. If nobody calls in, then we don't talk to anybody, and that's fine. Just wanted to give you guys the opportunity because we haven't done this in a while.
Jackson, ask a question.
Yeah, Jackson, come in and stall for us, man.
Oh, Jared will.
Dro will too. Here we go. Here's our normal callers, man. Yeah, hit that request to talk button, and we'll take your calls. There he is. Okay, here we go. Eric. We got Mr. Dro on the Twitter space first up. What's going on, Dro?
Don't say anything that gets you blocked by Tori.
Yeah, don't.
No.
Let's see what you got.
I'm good.
What's up, bro?
I'll say calm and good. You know, I'm not gonna say go Hogs. You know, but
Why are you actually an Arkansas fan?
No, hell no.
Then stop pretending to be an Arkansas fan, man. Chill.
I just picked them to win, so you know I had to go with them.
Well, hopefully you won money off that.
No, I didn't win shit. My bracket's already messed up. I'm just glad I got that one.
So you're still pretending to be, I don't understand this dude, man. He's still pretending to be a Hogs fan. Who wants to be a fan of a hog?
Yeah. Hey, but here's my question. Why are you guys so high on Benedict Mathurin? Like, I don't really see anything special about his game. Could you guys give some pros and cons about him?
Eric will be able to answer this better than me. I think he's a little higher on him than me and watched a little bit more of him. I've watched numerous Arizona games, but Eric, why Benedict Mathurin? Why is he a projected top 10 pick?
I mean, there's not much not to like about him. One, he plays on an offense that was predicated on moving the ball. They had the highest assist rate in the country this year, so he knows how to play in a system like that, even though he probably could have gone ISO a lot more than he did this year. He can score the ball. He can shoot the ball. I like his form. I like his cutting ability. I think he can drive and get to the hoop, and I think he'll be, like I mentioned on the show earlier today, I think guys like him with the spacing in the NBA being a little different. He can't play zone defense for as long in the paint. I think guys like that will find it easier to get to the rim. And I like his defensive potential as well. So I just like everything about him. And then you watch games like the one, I think it was against TCU, where he comes up with just 2 hustle offensive rebound plays off of free throws and gets 2 huge baskets that way as well. Just wings like that can score and can do multiple things. I just really like personally.
Yeah, at the minimum, I think he's a athletic 3-and-D guy. So floor-wise, I think he has one of the highest floors in the draft simply because I trust his ability to shoot and I trust his ability to at least be a solid defender. And then he has athleticism. So he's a guy, like, watching him run off screens at the three-point line is kind of fascinating because he catches the ball and immediately gets into a shot, and then he also gets a lot of lift on his shot. So it's like if you end up trailing, even if you're close to him, you still can't contest his shot well enough in order to force him into misses. Like, he comes off the screens with a ton of confidence and rises up into his shot, and you're not blocking that shot. He gets off the ground quick, and he gets a lot of lift on his jumper. So at least just a guy spotting up, knocking down threes, being a cutter, playing defense, and then you can run him off some screens like the Blazers do Ben McLemore. That's already a pretty solid player, and then I think he has potential to be a guy who creates off the dribble. He did some of that for Arizona, so that's obviously the thing that'll determine if he's just a role player or potentially a star, but I think he has the potential to be a star in that regard.
So would you put him at the 3, or what would his fit be on the Blazers?
3. He's listed as what, 6'7"? Eric?
Always listed at 6'7". Never know. It's probably closer to 6'5". But yeah, it's as we've been saying all along. I mean, the measurements are going to be key. If he measures shorter and doesn't have a long wingspan, like Chris Brandlin thinks in chat, he's probably a 2 in the NBA. But as Mr. T points out, he's supposedly has a 6'10" wingspan, which is more than good enough as long as his reach is good, which I think it would be if he had a 6'10" wingspan. And I think if he measures 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan, that's more than enough to play him at the 3, and I think you're fine there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is a lot of these prospects, same with like an AJ Griffin, same with a Shaden Sharp, their measurements will determine their stock and determine like my opinions about them. You know, I can sit there and talk about their skills and whatnot, but if they aren't big enough to play the 3, they all of a sudden make a lot less sense for the Blazers. If they are big enough to play the 3, then they make a lot more sense for the Blazers. So for some other teams, that won't matter. If they need a shooting guard, small forward type of player, it won't matter as much compared to the Blazers, who are set at the guard spots and need a small forward. So waiting for his measurements, Sharp's measurements, Griffin's measurements. There's a number of guys in this draft where I'm curious to see where their measurements are around the combine.
Okay. So here's another question. Is
right.
like, let's just say we draft Mathurin or whatever, and he's going to be our 3. Like, what are we going to do with Nas then? Because like then we have Ingles. You know, we might even go get Jeremy Grant. Like,
I think at that point, you know, you have a competition between Nas and Mathurin for the starting 3 spot, and then whichever one doesn't win that is the backup 3, and then Ingles, if you bring him back, he's probably not going to play right away anyway, but then I think Ingles is big enough to play some 4. Like, he's kind of a small ball
Nas
forward
would
off
be.
the bench.
Nas
Yeah, I mean,
would be.
well, you wouldn't even have to designate. Like, if Nas is coming off the bench and Ingles is coming off the bench and they're playing together, you wouldn't even necessarily have to designate one as the 4, one as the 3. I think doesn't Ingles have better size than Nas?
I think Nas has a longer wingspan.
Yeah, but Ingles is taller, so I need to look up Ingles' measurements. But, you know, you'd have one of those guys back up 4, one of those guys back up 3, and then if the Blazers really wanted Grant, he would probably be the starting 4. So your forwards would basically be those 4 guys. It'd be like a Mathurin, Nasir Little, Jeremy Grant, and Joe Ingles. And 2 of those guys play the 3, 2 of those guys play the 4. You could look at it that way.
So do you guys think that forward lineup is probably the best Dame has ever had? Do you think we'd have to like get a better lineup than that? Like I feel like those 4 guys would be pretty solid together.
Eric?
What? Sorry. What was the question?
Wow.
So the question was, don't you think that those 4 forwards, was it Ingles, Mathurin, Grant, and Nas? Don't you think that those 4 forwards would be like the best Dame has ever had? Like that lineup?
I mean, yeah, assuming Mathurin turns into what you think he's going to be and Nas continues to make a jump. Ingles, it's tough because he is showing signs of slowing down a little bit this year. So if you could get him to somewhat close to a couple years ago, then we're fine. But yeah, the whole I'm hearing an echo, Tori. I don't know.
Are you? I don't know what's up with that, but I don't think it's on stream or anything.
I think it's from yours, but
it's not on stream.
The man, I can't even think right now. There we go. So yeah, I don't think Ingles is going to be a huge part of things other than being a vet, and maybe it's kind of like Winslow, right? Because we still have him too. So I think those guys will be there if we need them type of guys, but also not necessarily huge parts of the rotation. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I don't like Grant, so I'm kind of biased. I'd rather have Aminu back or anyone than Grant. But yeah, I don't know about that part of it. But yeah, it's certainly up there with some of the best forwards they've had.
For sure.
But I would say that about any forward we really got in this draft, and because we'd still have a chance to get Engel or Grant, obviously, if that's who you want, and we'd still have Nas, and if we re-sign Ingles, we'd have those guys no matter what.
Oh, I definitely don't want Jeremy Grant. Hell no. Yeah. Off of what you guys say about him, I don't really want somebody that doesn't want to win. We just had Norman Powell and Robert Covington, so I don't want somebody like that again.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for calling in,
Thank
Dro.
you, guys. Yes,
Have a
sir.
good one,
Thank you. Have
Dro.
a good night. Thank you. Go Hogs.
Screw the Hogs. All right. Remove from speakers as fast as possible. Anyway, next up we got Jared.
What's up, Jared?
What's going on, Jared?
What's going on?
Not much, man. We're just streaming. What's up with you?
Yeah. Not too much, man. Shout out Isaiah Roby, I guess.
Yeah, phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Anyway, so where do you think mathematically, I guess, or like what's the best possible outcome mathematically, like odds-wise?
Or for
Yeah.
odds. I mean, for the Blazers pick,
Yeah.
probably. I mean, fifth. If we got really lucky, we'd have to lose out, and Indiana would have to win 3 of their final games for us not to be tied with us. I don't see that happening, but if we can end up in a tie for 5th with Indiana, I think we'd have 40% chance at top 4
Okay.
and around 10% chance at the number 1 overall pick. So I think that's the best case scenario. I think more likely is like a little bit less than those percentages.
Okay. I could see us going past like Sacramento or something like that.
I mean, yeah,
That's probably our
the
best
one
case.
Team. Yep.
Also, to answer earlier on the Ingles question, I think he's 6'8" with like a 6'10" wingspan.
Yeah, I mean that's probably similar
So
to
he-
Nas. Yeah, because Nas is
Yeah,
6'5".
so he could definitely play the 4.
Yeah, Nas is 6'5" with a 7'1" wingspan. So, similar size. Ingles, I mean, the 4's just going smaller. So I think Ingles is fine as the 4. His game, he plays a slow game anyway, so I think it might fit him better to play the 4. So I'd give
He
him a
does
chance.
kind of have that. He does kind of have that like Watford-esque game, just kind of like high skill and
Yep.
unorthodox kind of play style.
Yep. Anyway, what you got? Couple questions, or
I think
you didn't have any on your mind? You're thinking of them now?
I didn't have anything else in my mind really.
Huh. Okay. So you got nothing else?
Nothing really. I just kind of wanted to be like shout out Isaiah Roby.
Oh well, good to talk to you, man. Next time you ask good questions when you think about them. It just seems like you don't know what to ask. So definitely come up with a couple questions next time, because you
try
don't
to
really
come up
ask
with a
good
couple more, man.
questions, man. Just come a little bit prepared,
All right, man.
All right, man. Have a good rest of your night, bro. All right, we got who's up next? Shervin, I think, and then Jackson. Eric, are you talking at all? Eric, are you there? Let me check Discord. I can't hear Eric. If you're talking, Eric, I can't hear you.
Check the chat.
Oh.
My mic's doing the thing it always does
Oh,
after a
is
few
it?
minutes.
Oh,
So
that
I tried
sucks.
restarting it. It doesn't work.
That sucks. Okay, cool. I don't know why that happens. Anyway, just me, so no Eric. We'll talk to Shervin and Jackson, then we'll wrap things up. What's going on, Shervin?
Yo, what up? I don't know
No-
if it's just me or I think your mic is tweaking right now.
Is it? It
It's like-
might be.
Yeah.
I mean, we always have some difficulties with these spaces. That's
it's
why
all
we
good.
stopped doing them as much. But what you got?
Oh, good. I was just gonna say, what do you think about my boy Bankero? Ball don't stop certified, pure hooper.
I like him
what's the
less
stock
that you just
looking like?
called him all. Since you said all that about him, I actually like him a little bit less now.
Hey, he's been killing though. If he wins a chip, if he takes them all the way, does he change your mind or no?
Answer that on Blazers Uprise Live earlier today, but I'm down to answer it. Actually, I'm gonna take whatever questions you have, and I'm gonna take whatever questions Jackson has, and then I'm gonna talk with Eric about him. We're gonna like take the questions and then wrap up the space because Eric can't respond in here. Eric's thing is glitching. So if Bankero takes him all the way, does it change his stock? You want us to talk about Bankero? Is there any other questions that you had?
Oh yeah. Would you take AJ Griffin top 5?
Would I take him at 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that all you got? Those are 2 good questions.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man.
Wait, you want me to ask more for later?
I mean, if you had more, I'm just gonna ask them to Eric so we can both talk about him instead of just me because Eric's space is.
Let me think of one real quick. Oh yeah, should we re-sign Eubanks?
All right, Bankero, Griffin, Eubanks. All right, man. Appreciate you calling in and giving us that.
For sure. Later.
See you, man. Have a good night. All right, and then Jackson. Let me get Jackson up here. What's going on, Jackson?
What's up? What's up?
Not much, man. What you got?
I just got one thing.
Okay.
It's I don't know. I hear you guys talking about Nikola Jovic a little bit here and there, and you guys like him, but I don't really know a lot about him. So I was just wondering if you guys could talk about him and what you like about him for a little bit.
Yeah, we can answer that after we answer Shriven's questions.
Cool,
I just definitely want to talk with Eric about that. So we're going to wrap up the space. Appreciate you calling in, Jackson. We'll answer that in a second. Anyway,
Great.
apologies for the Eric's difficulties, but we got some questions to talk about. Anyway, Eric. All right, so we got 4 questions: 3 from Shriven, 1 from Jackson, prospect related.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, figured I'd, just get him on deck for us. So first one was Bankero.
Yeah.
And we answered, but we can talk about that a little bit more right now. So if he wins at all, that doesn't necessarily change my opinion of his stock. It just shows that he can perform under pressure. So it's that's the only thing that I think tournament games matter more than regular season games, is showing if a guy can carry his team under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, it's normal games for me. So him shooting well over the tournament obviously matters. But I don't necessarily put a ton more importance on tournament games compared to the regular season.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. This is how I put it. He doesn't necessarily move up in my book. It's still razor thin between those 3, so I don't really have a problem if we go any of the Jabari, Chet, or Bankero ways.
Mm-hmm.
But Bankero's performance, to me, has solidified that he definitely still deserves to be in the conversation with those other 2, versus he was kind of maybe falling out to where at one point before the tournament, especially Duke loses to North Carolina and then they lose in the ACC tournament to Virginia Tech, and you're kind of thinking Chet and Jabari are starting to separate themselves from Bankero, and Bankero's firmly in 3rd. Whereas now, I think he's definitely still back in that conversation. So it's kind of like that for me. I don't think anything he could do from here on out would say, oh, you have to take him over Jabari or Chet. But I still think all 3 of those guys would help us and would be immensely good picks if we had.
Yep. Absolutely agree on that. The second question was AJ Griffin. Would you take him at 5 right now, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of guys we talked about, still need to see the measurements.
Yeah. For
sure. A little scared about his injury history, but as we mentioned earlier, if he regains any of that athleticism, he could be a steal at 5. I would be tempted to take a few other players at 5 as well, but yeah, ultimately I think I'd settle on him, because then for sure you have a small forward that is a good 3-and-D player that should be plug and play almost immediately. You don't really have to worry about him developing his shot or learning how to play defense. I think he's good enough to play both of those right away, and could battle Nas or push Nas. And if Nas outperforms him, we have a good 1-2 punch there at small forward. If Nas kind of plays worse than him, then he could come off the bench, and I think we're still fine there. So I kind of like I kind of like having a for sure small forward with that pick. if we get it.
Yep. I right now would take Sharp at 5 instead of Griffin, but it depends on measurements. If Griffin measures well and Sharp isn't 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, which is what it's reported he is, which is basically almost identical to Nasir Little, then, you know, if Griffin has better size for the 3 than Sharp, then I'd have to reconsider. But right now I'd lean towards Shaden Sharp at 5. The next question, what was the third question he had?
The third one was if we should retain Drew Eubanks.
Oh, yeah, third string center next year, in my opinion. Not a guy you should want in the rotation, but a guy who, you know, is a solid third string center.
Yeah, or maybe temporary second string while our rookie center that we pick, maybe in the 38th pick or something, develops, or if we get Koloko somehow or something. So maybe those two kind of battle it out for our second string, but
but also, you know, you have to insert into that is Watford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I don't think long term I don't really want Watford playing center. I think
neither do I. But if it's a situation where it's like your second string center isn't like a guy who's already established and you know is going to be your second string center, if it becomes a minutes battle, then I think that's a situation where Watford would also be in that conversation.
Mm-hmm. But Eubanks is one of those. So if we don't get this in the draft, I definitely want to keep Eubanks because he's a quick jumper, and we don't really have many quick jumpers on this team. But you can get it to him, and he goes right up and dunks it, you know, or you can lob it to him and he dunks it. He's very, very good around the rim. So I think having a guy like that will help everyone, whether he plays a lot or not. And then if they get used to actually playing with a guy like that, maybe they can start learning how to get those same opportunities for Nurk, and maybe he gets a little bit better, easier opportunities. He's not as quick of a jumper, obviously, as Eubanks is, but, you know, you could still get him, throw the ball up towards the rim where he can catch it and go right up instead of having to come down with it in traffic like he usually has to. So I think having a guy like that, whether it's Eubanks or a free agent or whatever, I think we need a player like that. But now that Eubanks has been here, I wouldn't mind bringing him back on a minimum contract.
Yep, absolutely agree. So then Jackson's question was Nikola Jovic. All right, we've mentioned his name, but haven't really talked in depth about him. And I still have to see more of him. He's a European player, so I haven't got a chance to like watch one of his games. But he's Serbian. Projected right now, kind of around the 20th pick, but he's intriguing for me simply because he's 6'10". And he has, you know, he's pretty fluid, agile, and skilled. This is his per game averages. I don't know what league this is from. I don't know if you know, Eric, what league he's playing in, but I'm just going off Tankathon. In 23 games, this is per game averages wherever he's playing. He's averaging 11 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, and over 3 assists per game. Currently shooting 40% from the field and 32.5% from 3, making 75% of his free throws. Tankathon projects him as a 36% NBA three-point shooter. So he's a guy who isn't like a lights-out shooter yet, but close enough where you can see him being a solid to good NBA three-point shooter, and then he can handle the ball and he can pass. That's already intriguing for a guy who's 6'10". So he's kind of a lottery ticket. On draft night, he's going to barely be 19 years old. He was born June 9th, 2003. So he's just one of those guys where you take him and he already is skilled for his size, and that under Chauncey, a guy who's good at developing playmaking in players, good at developing, good at helping players make the right reads and whatnot. I could see that being a guy who's a steal around the 20th pick if he's able to pan out. Obviously, defensively, he has some question marks. I haven't really seen enough to make a judgment on that.
Yeah, so I've always said if he measures a true 6'10", he's going to easily shoot up into that 10 to 12 range. To me, when I watch him, he doesn't look 6'10". I think it's maybe a 6'10" with big shoes on. So he's probably going to be more like 6'8", 6'9". But this guy plays like a guard. He's got a great-looking shot. He's got elite handles for someone that tall. Yeah. He can play make. He can shoot. He can do like multiple things off a pick and roll, which you look to have a dynamic player like that. On defense, it's kind of hard because I think he's in one of the lower leagues in it's not the Spanish league. That's the best league in international. So I think it's tough to project, but like he's fine on defense. Like he's not terrible, but he's not great either.
Yeah.
One thing he does do really well is he grabs rebounds and pushes it up the floor really fast, and with that playmaking ability and what we've seen, what Chauncey has been yelling at his players to do, I think that would be a really good fit, like you mentioned.
You know who he kind of reminds me a little bit of?
Who?
Avdia, when Avdia was coming into the draft.
Yeah, a little bit. He's
not like the best shooter, but like close enough where you could see him being a good shooter. Because Avdia like hasn't really been much of a playmaker in the NBA, but like coming into the draft, I remember Avdia being looked at as a playmaker, like a 6'9" guy that could pass, initiate a little bit, good transition player. And here's the thing, like Avdia wasn't looked at as a good defender coming into the league, if I recall correctly. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, it's the same thing. I mean,
but he's been a really good defensive player this year. Yeah. So any guy with like size for his position, who's like fluid and agile and coordinated, I have confidence in them being able to be, smart. I have confidence in them being able to be decent defensively. Mm-hmm. So
that's kind of like what my feelings are about. To bring it back to Banchero real quick, like I feel like he's got the basketball IQ to be good on the defensive end eventually as well. So yeah, you just gotta kind of project that sometimes. But I mean, the best way to describe him, he's like a smaller version of Jokic. I know it's kind of seems silly to compare anyone to Jokic, but like he plays like a skinnier, quicker version of him that's not a center, but kind of like a big man version of Nick Batum. It would probably be like one of the best case scenarios, but yes, it's weird because this year there aren't a lot of international prospects in the lottery positions. So we've had a lot better chance of scouting a lot of these guys because most of the lottery picks played in the tournament this year, which is the first time in a really long time that's happened.
Yeah. Yep. So those were all the questions that we had left over from the space. We can answer chat ones for 10 or 15 minutes, then we'll probably log off this stream.
Rahi asked me earlier what two picks what I as of right now, who I'd want, who are the two ideal guys. That's so hard to answer without knowing what picks we have. Like if you could tell me like what we'd have these picks.
He said best case scenario being 1 and 9.
Yeah. Well, 1 and 9. If we got 1 and 9 and ended up with like Jabari and Mathurin, that to me would be like one of the best drafts. It might go down as one of the best drafts ever if both those guys pan out. So that would be my ideal situation. You might pick someone different at 1, but I'd be fine with any of those 3 up there at the top 3. But if we got him and Mathurin slid to 9, I think that would be awesome because we have the potential there of having a star small forward and a star power forward in addition to Ant and Dame, and both of them I think would be good defenders on the perimeter to help alleviate some of the weaknesses of a Dame Ant backcourt, and we'd still have Nurkic man in the middle. Man, I think that would be possibly a contender within 2 years.
Yep. Here's the best case scenario for me. Okay. It's somewhat similar, but it'd be obviously getting 1 and 9. Okay. But then OKC currently would have the 15th pick and could also have the 3rd pick, depending on how the lottery plays out. Same thing with Houston. They have the 16th pick and could have the 3rd pick. So I would hope that one of those teams ends up at 3, and I would trade 1 for 3 and 15 or 3 and 16. Okay? Mm-hmm. And then you take one of Banchero, Chet, or Jabari, whichever one is left at 3. And then at 9, you hope you get Mathurin. And then at 15 or 16, you take, I would probably want Agbaji. I would probably hope that Agbaji would fall there. or Tari Eason, but Agbaji in mock drafts is the one that I see kind of around 15, 16 a lot. So if you could end up with one of Chet, Jabari, Banchero, end up with Mathurin, then also get Agbaji out of it, or you could trade that 15th, 16th pick for maybe a player that can, is more established and use the trade player exception, then that would be good.
See, I love both Mathurin and Agbaji, but I don't want both of them because I think they're pretty similar players. So I'd probably...
You wouldn't want just one of those top three and Agbaji compared to Jabari alone?
No, I'm saying if, in your scenario, if we took Banchero at 3 and then got Mathurin and Agbaji, like I wouldn't want both of those guys. I would take Mathurin and then I'd probably take like Koloko or someone over Agbaji or Mark Williams or someone just to have a big man backup as well.
See, I just go with Mathurin and Agbaji are small forwards next year. Assuming they have to measure, right, as small forwards. Mm-hmm. But if both of them have the size to be small forwards, both of those guys are our small forwards next year. And then Banchero, assuming Banchero's there at 3, Banchero's our starting power forward, and then you probably go with Nas as the backup power forward, or you shop Nas. That would be my play there.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're doubling, like, yeah, they're similar, but you're doubling down on the chance that one of those guys becomes a star.
Right.
So that's why I wouldn't really worry about taking 2 similar guys there.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nas probably has some trade value, so you see if he returns anything. If not, you can go forward next year with him being the backup power forward, and you're probably happy with that.
Yeah.
So.
So Chris asked how are we going to clear roster spots for 3 rookies if we did that.
Do you see who's playing right now? What do you mean?
I mean, CJ Ellaby is probably gone in that scenario. Brandon Williams goes back to the 2-way. We have an extra 2-way. Obviously, wouldn't use one of our first-round picks on it. But, we have the roster spots. We only have 7 people under contract right now. So.
Yep, that's the last thing I'm worried about. Goalpool Nas has a 7'1" wingspan. And like an 8', 8.5" standing reach. So I'm not worried about him being able to play the 4. He's undersized at the 4, but he rebounds well. He's a quick jumper. I don't have worries about Nas being the power forward off the bench. If he was starting, then a little bit more worries about that. But if he's the backup 4, I'm fine with that. And if you're really that concerned with that, I know everybody loves Nas, but I'd gouge his trade value. Obviously, you gouge the trade value of the pick that you take Agbaji with too, right? So you just see which one returns you more. Because I'm perfectly happy with both those guys being the backup small forward going into next year.
Mm-hmm.
I just think there's a chance that Agbaji is better than Nas is next year, with Nas having more long-term upside.
Yeah, and there is a scenario where Ellaby's only been in the league 2 years. If he doesn't get a minimum contract elsewhere, we could bring him back as a 2-way, as our other 2-way.
Yeah.
if you really want to keep Ellaby. But I don't know why we would, but
yeah, I'm not worried about roster spots.
Yeah. Because so we have 7 under contract. You add Ant, Hart, and Nurk back in. Well, Hart's technically under contract. We'd have to cut him, but so that's 10, right? Mm-hmm. And then Ingles is 11. So we still have 4 roster spots. Re-sign Eubanks and then sign the 3 rookies in that situation. That's 15.
Yeah, but you also have 38, so who knows what you do with that. But you can trade that for a couple future seconds if you wanted to.
Or just take the best international player and keep him overseas for a year.
Yep.
Or you could use him as the 2-way or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would be really easy to trade Keon Dede or Greg Brown or whoever, like just get rid of one of them. And then we'd free up the spot for the MLE or the trade exceptions or whatever we wanted to use.
Yep. Isaac Ordaz has a good question. He says, say we get the 4th pick and the Pelicans pick conveys to us. Would those be enough combined for the third pick? If not, what would we need to add to make it work? Obviously, it depends on who gets the third pick. I could see it not being enough for certain teams who just like love Banchero and want Banchero and don't really need a guard. For other teams, they could be willing to do that for sure. Would you even want to do that, Eric?
Well, in that scenario, I would wait to see how the draft panned out first, because if someone takes Ivy, we don't even have to trade, right? And we still get one of them. So I still think that is a very strong possibility. I think Ivy's going to wow in workouts, and I think there's still a strong possibility someone takes him in the top 3. So in that scenario, I'd probably just keep 4 and 9 and be happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah. You then have the, I don't know, maybe the possibility of maybe 4 and 9, you know, even if Toronto isn't looking to move Siakam, maybe it's enough where it's like, oh, they'd have to accept it. And Siakam had 40 points today. I mean, obviously, I don't want Siakam just because of one game, but Siakam's been my dream target for a while. I could see Portland ending up with the 4th and 9th, or like the 4th and 11th picks, and then trading them for Siakam. You'd have to trade Bledsoe and then like maybe sign the rookies and include them as outgoing salary just to match his salary. But I could see Portland, that being Portland's big move, if they end up at 4. Which, Dame, Ant, Siakam, and Nurkic, is that enough to contend next year? I mean, that's pretty dang good. And then if Nas continues to develop as the 3, you know, that would be intriguing. So there's so many avenues to talk about. That's why I like taking questions on this, because it's a situation where like in the past there would only be like certain possibilities and they were kind of finite. So then people would come up with crazy stuff that's just like, nope, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. But there's so many different possible paths that like there's legitimate hypotheticals that people could bring up that we haven't thought about. So it's cool to get questions on it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we got 4 and Ivy is on the board and a team at 6 gave us an extra asset to move back a couple spots, I think we probably do that, especially if Sharp's in the draft, right? Because then we're guaranteed Sharp or Griffin in that scenario. Anyway.
Yeah. 4 to 6. We talked about that earlier today. Yeah, 4 to 6. And that's the thing. If Houston or OKC falls to 6th with those mid-first round picks, like 4 for 6 and 15/16 would be doable in my opinion. So it's, and here's the thing, there's going to be prospects that rise up draft boards that are probably considered like borderline second round picks that could end up going lottery too, that could affect things. Like honestly, like there's been previous drafts where a prospect like a Blake Wesley, who's a guard that plays for Notre Dame or played for Notre Dame, has like jumped up into the lottery. Like Josh Primo last year was looked at as a late first round pick. You know, Tyler Hero at this point, the year he got drafted, was looked at as a second round pick, like an early second round pick. And then he ended up being a lottery pick. So things are going to change too. Anyway. Todd Murray, I don't think we could get both Siakam and Banchero.
Yeah, it's pretty much impossible to pull off.
We'd have to trade the pick to get Banchero for Siakam. Honestly, like the most realistic path to Siakam would be having a pick where you could draft Chet and instead trading it for Siakam. Because Chet would make a ton of sense for... Chet would be perfect for Toronto, in my opinion. Not right away, but... What were you saying?
As much as I like Siakam, if we get a top 3 pick, I'm not trading it.
Yeah, I'm also... Yeah. Ugh.
I would may I don't even know if I consider this. We've talked about this before, but someone like Cat, but I don't think Timberwolves would trade him. But
I would rather have Siakam than Cat.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like I think that would be. I don't know, but I'm pretty much keeping any top 3 pick we get.
Jackson, I don't know why you hid that comment, but okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's tough, man. I love Chet. It's just like they're all three of those prospects I really want, but also it's you almost have to consider trading. God, I'd be, I don't know. I would maybe trade even the number one pick for Siakam. I don't know. It's tough, dude, but Siakam's legit.
Yeah, just based on the moves we had, like if we still had a big contract other than Bledsoe, and like if it was like Bledsoe and Robert Covington or something like that level player and a pick, then I could see it. But I just don't like, trading both picks and having to match salary and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, if you're top three, you probably wouldn't have to trade the second pick.
Yeah,
and that pick would be
But I
high
still
enough
don't
where you
like
could
Matthews.
probably sign the rookie and then trade him as salary, and that gets you close because that's like what, 8 million plus 19 for Bledsoe. That's 27 million, and Siakam's like 35, so you just have to trade out like Greg Brown on top of that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to consider that. I mean, because then you still have the TPE in the 9th pick.
Yeah, good problem to have, right, Shervin?
Is there anybody other than OG or Jeremy Grant for that TPE that makes sense? Trading, like... I mean, Jeremy Grant doesn't make sense to trade for, but, he's talked about. Is there any other options for that TPE?
No, unless we start talking about maybe free agency, but there's the free agents class sucks too, so that's why I'd rather have a rookie than sign someone anyway. No, Harrison Barnes does not make sense.
Yeah, no. And that's
No.
the thing. If you're getting Siakam, you're probably not getting OG,
No to Miles Turner, no to Jonathan Isaac.
Yeah. 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 There's not... Imagine Dame, Ant, Grant, Siakam, and Nurkic. How would you feel if that was our lineup? Like, at this point, not knowing, like, how we get there, but if we went to next year with a starting lineup of Dame, Ant, Grant, Siakam, and Nurkic, would you be happy?
See, I would be...
Like, would you take that if that was offered to you right now? Like, that could be our lineup next year. Not knowing how we get there, not knowing where our picks end up, just like, that's the option on the table. Deal or no deal?
No deal for me. Because I don't like Grant or Siakam playing the three. I think neither of them would do well in that scenario.
I feel like it's more likely our team isn't that good, as good next year. But also long term, it could be better. But also, we could lose the Pelicans pick, and it's like we could end up with just the 9th pick, which probably isn't enough for Siakam anyway. So, I would probably say deal. That'd be a fun game to play in like April or something after the season's done. It's just like a Blazers Uprise Live episode, deal or no deal. We just come up with like certain roster constructions and say if we take it today, like not knowing how we get there, just like deal or no deal on this starting 5. I'd have to say deal on that. And I don't like Grant, but I'd have to do it because of Siakam and yeah. Chris, it's a hypothetical. Obviously, it's making some assumptions if it's a hypothetical.
Yeah, Eric Gordon doesn't... He fits the TP, but he's a guard I don't think we'd want. I'd rather have the Hart Ant Dame.
Yeah. John Collins doesn't fit into that TPE, does he?
No. We'd have to trade Bledsoe for him.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Is like I'm trying to think about players that play that fit into that TPE. I'm trying to think of like what's the best possible route. I mean, honestly, because the ninth pick isn't enough for Siakam, huh?
I mean, unless Toronto is super in love with someone, but yeah, probably not.
Just trying to think if there was a way we could get Jaylen Brown and Pascal Siakam. And no, Jaylen Brown doesn't fit into the TPE.
Nope.
Damn, man. It'd be nice to have tradable contracts.
But we have flexibility instead. Wait, Shervin, what you mean Banchero in 20 years? Now you're flipping to Jabari Smith jersey?
Okay, deal or no deal on a starting 5 next year of Dame, Hart, Jaylen Brown, Siakam, and Nurkic.
Dude, why are you asking me like
deal or no deal? You want I don't got suitcases.
No deal, because that would require us getting our pick back from Chicago and trading every future first we have.
Nah, we signed and traded Ant but without knowing how we get there. You know, there's no obviously Ant is not there. Say the lineup again. Deal or no deal? Dame, Hart, Brown, Siakam, Nurkic. Maybe that would be a game that drives you crazy though. I don't know.
No deal.
We're gonna end off this room with a chat poll on that. All right. I'm curious what you guys would vote. Deal or no deal for a starting 5 of Dame, Hart, Brown, Siakam, Nurkic.
I mean, 2 players that aren't going to get traded this summer. Nice.
You're thinking too much about how we get there. It's just a hypothetical for fun, Eric.
And no one else. You have no bench. You have to give up everyone in the trade.
No, you got Watford, you got Ingles, you got Nas.
No,
it's just more based on the starting 5
Nas.
without knowing. Nope, it's just based on the starting 5, not knowing what the bench is. See, I'll sit here without knowing how we get there. Just the starting 5, would you take it? It's all.
Nope. You have that starting 5 and nothing else.
That's not true. See, we sign ring chasers because that's a contender, and there's nobody's gonna ring chase with the Lakers anymore because they're frauds.
The Suns don't have to worry about that this year, so there's no chance of.
Jackson, you're overthinking it.
Yeah. So Rahi, trades like that, I mean, they're not. I just don't see them trading Cam Johnson in that situation.
Yeah, I don't either. Cam Johnson fits him perfectly in his role there. You'd have to trade. I think you'd honestly have to sign and trade Ant there, which isn't even doable because they're over the hard cap. But that's what it would take. It would take Ant being the CP3 replacement for them to give up Cam Johnson. Trevin, I never underthink anything, bro. Trust me. Just having a little bit of fun.
Liam, you don't have to duck for cover. We can sign Melo for a minimum.
Yeah, Melo, Macklemore. Just shooters, man.
I hear Cantor's available too.
Nah, he ain't a sniper.
Bring back the Melo Cantor.
Oh, God.
With Macklemore as.
God, stop. Just stop. See, I'm hypothetical for fun, and you start talking about Melo and Cantor coming back. That's just pure nightmares. Anyway.
Oh, sorry. Freedom. My bad.
No, I'm not calling him that. I don't know Ennis Freedom. I know Ennis Cantor. 60% said deal, 40% said no deal. Pretty even. Do you overdraft Bronny in 3 years to get LeBron? I'm not even going to think about frickin' Bronny. I think we get LeBron before then.
If we have a non-lottery pick and LeBron is saying he's coming if we draft him, I say yes.
Or if LeBron says he won't stay in Portland if we don't draft him, then yes.
Simons, Maxey, Poole.
Yes. Yes, agree. Anyway, anything. When Banyama, I'm not going into next year's draft, dude. I don't even.
But it's not an option because he's not in this draft.
Yeah, but it's like interesting hypothetical. I'd take like right now, if Banyama was in this draft, I'd take him.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Chet, so he's gonna Banyama's gonna be insane.
No, Ayton's not an option for the Blazers this year because the Suns can match, and we'd have to cut or renounce players to be able to sign Ayton, and then they'll just match our offer, and then we'd be stuck not being able to re-sign the guys we had to renounce. So that would really screw us if we went after Ayton.
Facts. Anyway. That's enough rapid fire questions for me. Anything else you want to say for the stream, Eric?
No, I hope everyone has a good night, and we'll see you after the game on Wednesday. And then just a reminder that Tori and I will most likely be at the game, and so if you want to say hi, message us on Twitter. But the stream will probably be a little later than normal.
Yep. Anyway, I might leave early if it's a blowout. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see on that. You know, if they're down 20 to 30 points with like 6 minutes left in the game, I'll just start driving home. But you know, if it's close, I'll stick around for that. But just wanted to see CJ's return, so we'll have a post-game stream on Wednesday, and then not 2 streams. We'll have Blazers Uprise Live on Thursday. Post-game show Wednesday, Blazers Uprise Live Thursday, then another post-game show on Friday. And we're rounding out the rest of the season. Only 2 weeks left from today. From yesterday. So less than 2 weeks.
Chris Brandlin saying he had a donation. I never saw it. I don't know.
Oh, we missed it. Oh, what'd your dono say? Sorry, bro. Let me know. I didn't have my dono feed up, and whenever I click on it, they need a dono feed on YouTube so you can look at your previous donos, but they don't have that. So let me know what your dono is. I'll read it off. Thank you for letting us know. Sorry about missing that.
Yeah, I literally don't see it. Sorry, Chris. Yeah, 7 games left, 0-7. Let's go.
Asked about Drew Eubanks. Oh, I mean, we can answer, man. Just, let us know.
Just ask the question real quick. We got you.
Yeah, and I don't want to, miss out on your message. Oh, it was during the Twitter thing. Oh, we did answer Drew Eubanks. You are now granted 1 free question in the future, Chris. All right, just say, "This is my free question" in all caps, and then state your question at any time in the future, and we will answer it. And if we miss that, then yell at us again. Anyway, appreciate you, bro. Appreciate everybody who shows some support. Thank you, and I get to hand out a permaban to end the stream, so screw off. Anyway, don't worry about it. But don't come into my stream insulting me and bring up politics. You freaking... Nah, I'm not even gonna say what I want to say, dude. But yeah, that's permaban worthy. So goodbye. Anyway, got to end off the stream right or wrong. I don't know. But anything else you want to say, Eric?
Have a good night, everyone.
Yep, appreciate almost all of you. All right, appreciate everybody that's supportive and shows love. So have a good rest of your night. Have a good Tuesday. We'll catch you again on Wednesday with another post-game stream. If you're going to the game and you run into me, say what's up. That being said, I'm out of here. Until next time, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.